thank you all for coming. We're a group that's been around for about 2.5 years, something like that. And typically we try to meet every second Tuesday of the month. We've got a pretty decent track record of making that happen. And we talk about all things Azure. And we've had things from AI spectrum, like what we're going to talk about today a little bit. We had things from serverless platform computing, virtual desktop solutions, networking, policy, cost management. So we do try to cover a broad range of topics. And if anyone in the room, please come on in and join us. If anyone in the room has a topic idea that they would like a future session to be on, please let us know. You can do that through the Meetup website that hopefully you all saw as a part of this meeting, or you can email me directly, just brian@bizstream.com. Also want to point out that each of the sessions that we do are recorded, thanks to Matt. Thank you very much, Matt, for doing that. And they are published at our YouTube channel, which if you go to YouTube and search for West Michigan Azure User Group, that's the fastest way to find it, because I'm not going to tell you what the URL is, because I don't know. So this portion of this thing will be published a little bit later on once we're done today, so you'll be able to look back at it from that standpoint. So I always try to say this: if you'd like to speak at our user group, more than welcome to. We would love it, especially the organizer, so that the organizer doesn't have to speak anymore. If you're interested in that, please see me afterwards or email me. Any topic goes, as long as you can relate it to Azure. We have had a couple people ask to speak about AWS, and they were shot and dragged and thrown out on the street. Sorry, this is an Azure user group. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, the person asked me about could we, I think, potentially just compare an AWS feature to an Azure specific thing. I was like, maybe, and then they kind of backed out anyways. So in case you don't know who I am, my name is Brian McKeiver. I'm co-owner at BizStream. We're a technology shop in Allendale, but been in West Michigan for 23 years. And a lot of the work we do is in Azure. So for that reason, I would like to dedicate my time to help more Azure usage in West Michigan. And there's a couple other organizers. Matt is one of them. Matt works at Meyer. He's also been a speaker for us. He's one of the organizers. I don't know why some of the other guys aren't here yet today, but we're going to just move forward. So our topic today is about Microsoft Copilot Studio. Raise your hands. Who's seen or used Microsoft Copilot Studio? Sweet. That's actually like 60% of the people in the room. Good. Because if I have questions about it myself, I'm just going to ask you guys to help me out. This Copilot Studio is kind of new, and in my work, I've really focused more on like full code solutions as opposed to low code solutions. But basically, that's what Copilot Studio is. It's a low code solution for building agents and copilots. So it's interesting for me to kind of compare and contrast doing this in full code mode, which you would use something maybe like semantic kernel or other tools that are out there, and then seeing how Microsoft has evolved it into basically a UI that's on the web that you can use to do all the work that you'd want to do, right? So we're going to walk through it today a little bit, and then main part of the session will be demo. We're going to demo building our own Copilot with an agent. And then we can kind of do other things from that point on as well. It might be a choose your own adventure at the end, depending on how interested people are. So Copilot Studio is part of the Microsoft Power Platform. Many of you have used it, so you might know this. But Power Platform is something I would say is a relative newcomer to the Microsoft 365 world. I would say maybe 4 or 5 years ago it started out. And it was meant for a way to do a low-code solution to build apps. And then it matured into a solution to build web pages and websites, and then it Power BI, and like it kind of went all these different ways, and they're all branded with Power something. So if you see Power something, it's part of the Power Platform. That means that those are low-code or no-code tools to get things done quickly. And there are pros and cons to low-code, no-code. Sometimes they're really amazing to get things done quickly out of the box, but then sometimes they're not so amazing when it comes to scale and enterprise and making it real world and making it kind of do the exact thing that you want to do versus just the out of the box components. So there's a little warning there. Yeah, go ahead.
So we're doing this. Now, does anything you create in this have to stay within the Azure environment, or can it be pulled out and used other places?
So the question is, if we're doing this, can anything be pulled out and brought locally to run or put into other environments? So I want to answer that with like kinda. I would say it still works the best, and it's intended to be used inside of Azure or your local web app environment, which behind the scenes connects to a lot of Azure things. But there are some ways to, I would say, deploy to containers. And then I think at that point, you could take the container, kind of do what you want with it, right? Now, I will also tell you that not necessarily connected to Power Platform or Copilot Studio. Another answer to that question is Microsoft is working on more and more solutions that do run locally a small language model or even a large language model on your local machine. And then with technologies they have, you can swap that out between the thing that's running locally on your machine or an API endpoint in OpenAI or Azure OpenAI. So like they're trying to add more flexibility that no matter where you want to run these things, you're still writing the same code, the same solution. So that's probably a little bit more towards code, full code solutions than Power Platform. But yeah, so I still think it kind of works best in this ecosystem. Anyone else want to answer that with another layer of context, or does that make sense? Okay, cool. Along the bottom, we have more components of Power Platform. And we're not really going to spend a ton of time on these things, but like these are some of the benefits and values that the Power Platform has behind the scenes. Connectors probably being the biggest, largest value point that the platform has, because instead of rolling your own, say, Microsoft Dynamics 365 integration code, you can literally search through a user interface, type in Dynamics CRM, and there's going to be probably an out-of-the-box connector already made for you. And it's just a fancy word for an integration. Basically, someone else wrote the integration code, they published it as a connector, and now you can connect your solution, your app, or whatever into the CRM or other things, right? So we might look at that today, depending on the time. Dataverse is all about storage and Fabric and connectors to be able to pull your own data. Actually, Robert, who isn't here tonight, he did a fantastic session earlier this year, potentially end of last year, around Microsoft Fabric for how to kind of harness your data and have it be able to be brought into more of a data warehouse type of solution. There's some really important things that it can do with that when you have an organization that has lots of data. AI Builder is something we're going to look at today. And then I'll be honest, the Power FX thing, I don't know anything about that one. There's a lot of names and a lot of tools. Can't be an expert in all of them, right? Anybody else in the room know what Power FX is?
I thought it was like the language it uses under the hood.
Could be like the function calling.
Kind of more the low code versus no code.
Yeah. Yeah. So everyone in the room kind of is thinking that maybe it's the language underneath the hood because of the FX functions, whatever. But who knows? Maybe a little bit further we'll get into some answers when we get to the actual demo. So, okay. Oh, also, Power Pages for websites. As my company builds websites, that's what we do all day long, every day. I was very interested when this first came out. And it actually is decent for small, simple web pages that may be turned into a collection of web pages, but I would not really fully recommend that for any kind of actual like real world website, in my opinion. If you need something quick, dirty, just to get something done on the web, WordPress is hard to beat, just to be honest. But if you need like one page to collect a form or one kind of event page that you want to generate from just generative AI, Power Pages now has that ability to do that. So it's kind of cool, but not really real world in my opinion. All right. So the rest of the talk is going to really kind of dive down into that one box of Copilot Studio. And Copilot as a term is Microsoft's branding for how to make AI in your organization, right? How many people in the room use GitHub Copilot, right? Almost everybody. I honestly think the name started there, and they liked it so much they were just like, oh, let's just bring it to everything else, because then people will know what this stuff is. I'm sure there's probably a better story around that, but that's my take on it. The thing I like about this slide is that it's really kind of pointing out that making a Copilot do something intelligent or smart is where the agent comes in. So if you look on the left side of the screen, there's a set of agents that the Copilot Studio has that you can use. We're going to check out a couple of those, or at least one of them today. And it just kind of plugs seamlessly into the other offerings that Power Platform and Copilots have across the Microsoft ecosystem. So they started building a lot of different Copilots and a lot of different product lines, and they figured out that we can't have people doing it differently inside of Microsoft to have everyone in the world have a different user interface for a Copilot in Excel versus a Copilot in GitHub versus a Copilot in CRM. And a lot of this came from that, is like we have to standardize, we have to simplify, we have to make it so that all these things are kind of the same feeling for when users use them. They have the same experience, they have the same guardrails and security and constraints. And they've done a really good job at that, in my opinion, to put those things in place to cover the word ecosystem. And as you start to get familiar with it a little bit more, you can bounce between tool set then, and you start to see similarities. The chat engine is kind of always the same, whether or not you're using Copilot Studio or you're in Azure AI Studio or in your local machine. And as I've done this now for probably about 2 years with other AI tools, that's pretty nice to have that familiarity come across in all these different platforms and tools and things that Microsoft has. Because probably tomorrow, Microsoft's going to release another new one that no one's heard of. But you know what? That chat interface should be similar, is I think some of the plan.
So each of these have different purposes. Singular chat interface. Is that chat interface being filtered to material related to what it's in, or is it all open and gives the same information no matter when you type the question in?
So the question is, are these chat interfaces kind of connected to information you bring to the table? And yes, they can be. Or they can just be the large language model itself. And I'll show you some of that today. But yes.
Because I'm thinking here, I give it a set of instructions. You're a Microsoft Office 365 expert, and you're doing this, and all those answers. So I was always wondering if we have that sitting there for each of the groups to help direct the information and make it hopefully less side effects that occur by not having any structure to what you're talking about.
Yeah. In a way. So some of the low code things, you're not going to be able to control like a system prompt the way you're kind of describing it. But other places you can. So we can get into that. So important thing at the very bottom is that Copilot Studio gives you the ability to have first-party copilots as well as third-party, right? Third-party being other things, CRM, Salesforce, SAP, whatever that those vendors are choosing to create the integrations for and support. First-party being the things that you want to do in your organization or in your projects, your data sets, right? And that's the power of what Copilot Studio really gives you. So it allows you to build your own agent or to extend the current Microsoft Copilot. It does rely on a Microsoft 365 account in a way, or an ability to connect to the Copilot SKU aspect of Microsoft 365. So what we're trying to just show here is there is basically that prerequisite of you have to have a 365 account to use Copilot Studio. So if you only have Google Workspace or Work Suite, sorry, that's going to be real tough. You're going to need a Microsoft 360 M365 Copilot SKU to be able to do this. And once you do that, you get the value of being able to build your own things. Behind the scenes, in that last point here, it's wiring up all the connectivity to Azure OpenAI services. It's using things that they've developed in past years that were called the Azure Bot Framework. It's using cognitive services. So some of these parts and pieces have existed in the Microsoft Azure world for probably almost 6 or 7 years. And instead of releasing them independently, they bundle them all together into Copilot Studio to where you don't even actually need to know these names anymore, but behind the scenes, it's powering it. So like one of the abilities of a Copilot is to do like text to speech, right? Well, what that actually uses behind the scenes is an Azure cognitive service that's a speech synthesizer, or the Azure speech service, whatever the name is now, because the name has changed like 5 times. But that's what it's doing, is bring all those things together so that you can do it in a UI that looks like this very easily. And the reason you'd want to do it is really this slide. This is all about the fact that you don't just want to have a chat GPT, right? You don't want to have just one thing that's generative AI that doesn't know anything about your data or doesn't have the ability to do anything for you. So being able to add an agent, define your own agent, connect it to chat to the data or the knowledge that you have at your company or your projects, and then basically be able to make it do things is what this life cycle looks like. So I like the branding here, your agent, your way. That's what Copilot Studio lets you do. And we're going to go through the first couple parts of this life cycle. We're probably not going to do too much about monitor and improve today because there's probably not enough time. But that is the pretty marketing slide about it. So instead of just hearing me talk about it, I think now we're going to dive into it a little bit. Let me make sure I'm doing the right. Yes. So let me jump into my web browser. And I'm going to refresh this just to make sure, because I sat idle for a little bit. I want to make sure that it still comes up okay. One thing I was noticing earlier is that this is not the fastest website in the world, but that was actually pretty good. So all I've done is gotten to copilotstudio.microsoft.com. In fact, if you just search for Copilot Studio, you're going to get right to the URL pretty much. And I've already joined the studio with my workspace, so it knows I have an environment. You can have multiple environments that represent kind of, the different places that you need to work in or for. I don't quite equate this in my mind to the same as like a local dev and production environment. It's more like Brian's workspace versus Matt's workspace, because ultimately you're going to publish these things out anyways. But it is a way to separate different environments. I don't actually have more than one environment, but that's just, you're going to have to pick one when you start. And most of the time it's going to default to like the tenant that your 365 account is in. Okay. Then from there, it gives you a way to kind of browse your most recent Copilots if it ever finishes. So I guess we'll come back to that. You have a navigation that allows you to look through the various third-party agents that exist that you can add into your Copilots. Wow, this is really good. Yeah, you know what? If we still have some major issues, I might switch to my hotspot, but let me just try to do this again. It's weird, the outer frame seems to load just fine.
Do something for me. Bring up a command line window and run ping, continuous ping against that Google or something. We'll start getting multiple drops in the connection.
I don't know if it's you guys. That's pretty good.
That's a rare thing.
8, 9. Yeah. Well, we're kind of at the end of the day here, so it's probably not too many people on your network, but okay. This is really good. This hasn't happened to me before. So we're going to see if we can at least look at one of these templates, because that looks like it seems to be loading. Okay. So one of the value statements of Microsoft Copilot is that you don't have to start from scratch. And there's a template library for Copilots that you may have either used in other products or just helpful ways to like learn the platform and learn the ability of what to do. So there's this like template library, and each of the templates has a name. By the way, do you guys want me to zoom? Is that like really small for the guys in the back? Not bad? Okay, well, we'll do a little bit. So each of the templates has a name, a lovely icon that you can update to whatever icon you want, or just use the one of the out-of-the-box ones, a description, some instructions, which is very similar to what James was bringing up earlier about the system prompt around what are the instructions that I want to tell the Copilot how to behave, right? So this one says, maintain a polite and professional tone while assisting with questions about the user's business. There's no specific topics that are off limits for discussion. Wow, that seems like super dangerous. I would not recommend that typically. And then there's this concept of knowledge for a template. And knowledge is where you start interacting with your data and your organization's information. And this one is actually tied to a website that is named Microsoft. Let's see if it's actually, yep, it's Microsoft.com is basically where the knowledge that you want to add into this Copilot template should come from. And what that really means is it's going to try to look at that website when you ask it a question, as well as the large language model that's powering it behind the scenes. So we're going to try to kind of bind those two pieces of information together simply by having a knowledge item added into the flow of the Copilot. And if you really, really just want to quickly start something, that's all you need. You can actually hit create. Actually, let me do this. Give this a unique name, demo 2, very unique. And what should happen is it takes that template with that knowledge item and that name, and it creates your version of that, which is what all good templates do. And then we can use that version to start playing around and start testing our own agent. And if I keep talking long enough, it may actually load the description and the instructions. All right, okay, so your agent is ready. Hey, marketing, thanks. I'm gonna close that. We have our name, we have our description and our instructions, and then we have the knowledge with the ability to add more knowledge. And one important thing is that it says that our knowledge item is enabled. So right now, it's saying, yes, I want to use this. There are times where you might want to disable that to not have external data come in and only be able to use the large language model data. But with no code and no actual super impressive things yet, we do have the ability to test our agents. Hello, what can you tell me about Microsoft? So what should happen here is it should go out to the LLM and also then kind of bind that information with what it finds inside of Microsoft.com. So our answer is that Microsoft offers a wide range of a bunch of words after that I'm not going to read. But importantly, it cites a reference using the little one here to the Microsoft privacy statement is where it got some of this information from. Interesting that it would choose that page, but hey, it's AI, right? We don't know what page it's actually going to choose when it does its thing. But that's the very basics, the very first starting point of a Copilot, right? And we just did that in about 10 seconds if you don't count the loading time. And then you could take this and you could publish it. And all the channels that this Copilot is going to be connected to would have this kind of show up. And by channels, we kind of mean like different places inside of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. Like you could potentially set up one of these places where those channels exist. But we're not going to get quite focused on that right now because I just know that you can publish these things and use them outside of the studio. Because what I really want to talk more about is the actual Copilot itself and doing something like special, not just like boring. So let me make sure I'm doing this in the right order. But that was the quick introduction to chatting over your data. Now, adding knowledge is something I'm going to do next. So I'm not going to completely talk about that in this slide. But if anyone was in the user group and saw me do some of that work last year with Azure AI Studio, we had to have like our own database format, our own JSON format. I mean, the power of that agent is the fact that it's literally hitting URLs and scraping and figuring out that information for us, right? That's pretty freaking cool. And what they're saying here is that we can actually have, with that type of engagement, agents that can answer thousands of questions out of the box in seconds. So first value point, there's no way I could do this in a code-based solution as fast as what we just did, right? And then you can do more things on top of just URLs and websites, which is what we'll do a little bit more of. You can do things like having file uploads that the generative answers can look at. Whether it's text-based documents as this shows, or all these other formats, HTML, Excel, CSV, XML, JSON, whatever. You can actually like add in more sources of information that it's going to pull that information from. I don't know why you would do that in the real world. Honestly, you would want to have a place that these files can be read from that can be updated continuously, not just a one-off file upload. But maybe once in a while you do need to do that. So let's look at this a second. All right. Let's go back into our demo 2 here a second. And now that we have shown that we're looking at a public website, we're going to click Add Knowledge. And here's, again, kind of the sweet little benefit of connectors from other places. So we looked at public websites as a way to pull information from. SharePoint is a fantastic place that has lots of information in many organizations, whether it's like a file library in SharePoint or a list or a team site or whatever. You can actually use that, grab the URL of that SharePoint team site and pull that information in to help with your generative answer. You can use Dataverse, which is pretty close to Fabric and things like that. Or there's things coming in the future that apparently I don't even have access to. So more knowledge connectors are coming. But I do think that this is the one you would use the most would be the public website to pull from. And then that other last point about being able to upload a PDF or CSV or text file, you could browse and do that here. So that's where you would do that to add more knowledge into your Copilot, into your agents.
Quick question about the SharePoint integration.
Yes.
Do you happen to know if SharePoint would be able to access all documents within the SharePoint site, or if it's scoped to a specific permission set, perhaps like your permissions because you're the one that's developing this Copilot?
Sure. So the question is, if we were looking at SharePoint as a knowledge source and we want to worry about things like what permissions I have to a library or a list, or what scope there is, honestly, it does have, I guess, this idea of authenticated users. So I think that the answer to that is yes. It would need to be something that you're authenticating to, whether it's your account or someone else's account. I'm guessing that's configuration behind the scenes because I haven't done this yet. But it's probably the endpoint and then a username and password. Almost like Power BI in a way. Most of the time asks you to authenticate into your solution. I'm guessing this would be about the same thing. But yeah, so it should respect security at the end of the day. Good question. Okay. So, this is a little bit more interesting to me, and this is where we'll spend more demo time. Actions and plugins. This is now making the agent part of the Copilot come to life. And a plugin is the way you connect those agents to your APIs and your data. So there are 1,000+ pre-built connectors that exist at different places, or you use your APIs. You can connect to them as the slide shows. And the thing that impressed me here is that whenever there's input parameters or outputs, the thing is smart enough to basically pull those out and allow you to configure and bind various actions and plugins together by parameters, whether they're input or output. You make a flow in the designer, and it just kind of all works. So we're going to do that because it's a very dynamic aspect of things. And we're going to do that from scratch, hopefully, if I do this right. So we're going to leave our just hello world demo. And now we're going to go into a scenario that is this. We're going to pretend that we are travel agency or a travel department for a company, and we want to create a Copilot that makes it easy for people to build a travel plan or to know more about places and destinations that we might want to travel to. Okay. So I'm going to use the Safe Travels Copilot template. I'm going to call it the West Michigan user group Safe Travels Copilot. And we're going to change the instructions here a little bit to say, you know what? They're saying from a template standpoint, you're an assistant that helps answer questions about traveling safe, both domestically and internationally. I'm actually going to do just domestically. Please respond in a positive manner. Also, please ignore anything internationally and Ohio. Because we're in Michigan, people, and Ohio's boring. No one's from Ohio here, is there? Okay. I know, we just met in Ohio, but that's fine. Or wait, we were in Ohio? Yeah, okay. Too many conferences are all starting to blur together. And out of the box, this template has this idea of a US travel website as its source of knowledge. So if I look at what that knowledge source is, it's at travel.state.gov, very boring travel information site. I don't want that. I would like to talk more potentially about Grand Rapids, Michigan. So let's grab Hello West Michigan as a knowledge source.
What about like Expedia or one of the big travel agencies?
So the question is, what about Expedia, one of the big travel agencies? Yes, you could do that, but I don't think the tool is smart enough to do like filtering and searching in Expedia's interface. However, if Expedia had a public directory listing of states and cities and locations, you could point at that URL and then it would find things below. So the difference there is it's not going to act as a user to say, find me a vacation home with 3 bedrooms, like all the filtering stuff that Expedia does. But I think in the future, who knows? Maybe that's possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
so you wanted to add like another publicly accessible site that's a little bit more open, less filterable, but they are very restrictive against certain like AIs. For example, Reddit, they have an exclusive agreement with Google, I believe.
Yeah.
Would you be able to add that here?
Well, that's actually what I'm going to talk about next.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's actually not supposed to be just any public website. They actually say it should be a public website that you own or that you're in charge of. So I'm in demo world a little bit. You guys have to remember, demo world. It's supposed to be still purposely to your organization's data. So think of it as like maybe if your company had an intranet or your company had a public domain that you could verify ownership, that's what it's supposed to be. But I want to make a somewhat interesting demo, so I'm just using someone else's website. Probably not the best ethical thing in the world to do if you're doing something for the real world. But this is demo.
So does this allow you to do credentials? If I have this, and I'm grabbing a specific internal, sometimes you want that to go through the outside world. How do you make sure that you're not opening the door to?
So fantastic question. The question was, what if I have credentials to the website that I want to get to, like a logged in type website? I haven't seen that ability with the out of the box flow. To me, so far, everything I've seen has had to be something that's available. Now, what you could do is create your own connector, your own plugin in a way that knows how to authenticate to that website and bring back the information and then return it. You wouldn't use just this knowledge of a public website knowledge. And I think that's why they call it public websites. The quick knowledge is public websites, right?
Yeah, but because the way you think of that is because you said use what you own.
Yeah.
And that has a tendency to be public necessarily.
Yeah. So again, we're going to just pretend that we own Hello West Michigan. And this knowledge source searches information on the web found at the domain URL, which doesn't mean it's just a description. So I'm going to add that in. So at least we have 2 knowledge sources now. We have the U.S. travel from the government, and then we have a very local Hello West Michigan site. Okay, and then I'm going to click create.
I think you can't wildcard that to get a whole bunch of other sites. So you get one at a time.
I guess one at a time, because I think it wants the context of knowing what to do, right? So, and right away, we're at our test your agent screen. The overview of the Copilot we're building says, "Hello, I'm the West Michigan Azure User Group Safe Travels Copilot, a virtual assistant," and you can ask it with a click. What can I ask? and it's going to say, I can answer questions like, how do I get a passport? What travel authorities exist? How do I find a visa? And this is something that we didn't have to write any code to do. It's just this is from interpreting the U.S. travel website. It probably figured out that these are key topics, and it's trying to help someone if they want to click through it. Now you don't have to do that. You can also just randomly ask it, where is a good place to visit that is warm? And in theory, it should ask the U.S. travel website plus the LLM how to answer that. So if you're looking for warm weather, Florida, California, Arizona, Texas, pretty good answers, right? But it's basically also saying, hey, this is AI generated content. It may be incorrect. And importantly, it basically kind of notes that we are using Azure OpenAI to do this behind the scenes. But that's not our scenario that we want to walk through. That's just to show you that we have basically an LLM already hooked up. What I'd like to do is say, hey, what's a good place for a beer in West Michigan? I guarantee you that the LLM nor the travel website from the state government is going to have that answer. But in theory, hello, West Michigan should. West Michigan is also a vibrant culture, including being referred to as Beer City. Great. What about an actual brewery in West Michigan?
We're the beer capital of the world as well.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Now, this is a little bit more specific answer that I was looking for, and funny enough, last time I did this was the first answer. But number one recommendation, founders. Is anybody got to argue with that in this room? No. Whoa, okay. I thought we were friends. We have Bell's, we have New Holland, Brew Vermont, and the Grand Brewing Company, which actually I don't think Grand Brewing Company is open anymore, but West Michigan should probably update their website. But I just want to show you that now we're kind of combining at least something that's specific on Hello West Michigan plus our actual LLM, right? Now, as I said, the scenarios are all around a travel agent, travel planner that we're trying to help people. And maybe one of those very helpful things would be like, hey, put together an itinerary for me, put together a whole travel plan for a couple places that I have time to visit in a couple days, right? We start to get more specific in our questions about how to be helpful, and that gets into actions. So now we're starting to build into the agent part of things. So I'm going to add an action. Wait. Did I do that right? Yeah. I'm going to add an action. Okay, why is this not refreshing? All right, create a new. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Nope. Oh, shoot, what did that message say? So this is supposed to autocomplete. Oh, it's better, but that's not the one that I want. Okay. These are all third-party things. We're going to try it this way. Add a topic. There we go. This is the design I was looking for. Sorry about that. So we're going to add a topic, which is in a way mapped to like an intent that a user wants to do. So I want to help build a travel plan. I want to help build an itinerary, right? So I'm going to go with travel plan as the name of the topic. And we start with a trigger. A trigger is where when it interprets the message that a user is typing into the agent, it knows how to start and do various things. So I'm going to say travel plan as our first phrase that triggers this topic. And I'm going to say also, can you build me a travel plan? And I'm going to do one more of Can you help me figure out what to do on my trip? Okay, so the phrases start out the fact that as we interpret the message that the user is giving us to start this trigger, which then can start a flow into doing other things. So we have a couple phrases. Oh, did I do that? Did I do that the last one there? No, of course not. So what did I say? Travel plan. Can you build me a travel plan? And can you help me find out what to do on my trip? Plus. Okay. Then once I have the trigger, I can add what do I want to do when that trigger happens. And you see there's a couple options. We could either just send an immediate response back, like send a message right back, like yes or no or something. We could have the AI ask a question or the Copilot ask a question, which is a simple text question, or we can have it ask something more special with what's called a card. And an adaptive card is a way to put structured like questions and structured information and collection of information in one prompt or one message. So that's the one that we're going to do in our next scenario here. But just there's many choices that you have around how is this topic handled once that trigger starts. So whether it's conditional, whether it's doing other topics, whether it's calling other actions, lots of cool things. But an adaptive card, I think, is the one that kind of showcases some of the power of this tool. So this card can be called whatever. And if you go into the definition of a card, what it really is a set of JSON that allows you to define your form for what that card is going to collect information-wise. And that'll make a lot more sense once we actually copy in some real adaptive card stuff. I wasn't going to sit here and type this and make you guys watch me type it. But what we're now saying in this set of JSON is, you know what? I want to show a text block to my user, and I want to tell it, hey, as a label, we would like a little bit more information to get you that recommendation. Tell us a little bit about where are you going? How many days are you going to be there? How many activities do you want to hit? So you can define structured information collection in this, in that JSON. And once you paste that in or build your own, that is now what that card does. And we immediately have a preview of what that card is giving us. So there's the name of the card and the intent. There is that label. We need a little bit more information from you. And we have two input fields for where are you going to and how many activities you're looking for. And that all came from that JSON that we put in there. And it automatically parses variables, output parameters, out of that card as well. So I didn't have to do the work of lining up these variables, but you can do more special things. This is kind of true of any like low code solution. There's ways to like append variables, do conditional things in variables, use system variables, use the ones that are part of your action or your node here. There's lots of things you can do, but I love the fact that it just kind of did all that for me. So now we're saying, hey, we need a little bit of information to give you a good recommendation. Tell us where you're going and how many activities are you looking for. So we need to do something with that information once it's collected, right? From there, we are going to just send a message. And, oops, nope, I did that one too fast. Sorry. We're going to one other thing that you can do is if you want to put multiple topics together and flow multiple connectors, that's this little area of topic management is a way to do all that, right? You say, hey, would you like to flow into another topic or end this one? That's like your conditional information steps. So let me go back to this. All right. So we need to grab next this. We're going to ask a question. And to do that,
I assume you can have multiple triggers, correct?
you will have one main trigger per topic. You could have multiple topics. Then you could have many phrases that make that trigger happen.
I have my students playing with if this, then that, and they do a schedule, and the student said, when the temperature outside gets to be 65, if this, then that, will send him an email saying, grab your code or something. But he can do multiple triggers though.
Right. That's more of a like if this then that is more of a full like integration platform,
Correct.
right? And it so has multiple things. There are other parts of Azure that can do all the things you just mentioned, like scheduled triggers and things like that. But for the Copilot, the topic is the main thing we're doing, and we need something to trigger just the topic. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. You know what? I'm gonna go based off. Oops. Well, yeah. I'm gonna leave this a second, and we're gonna go into the one I made already. Topics. Travel plan. So, trigger, adaptive card, same thing. You saw me plug in the JSON to build that, and the prompt was the thing I was forgetting, of course. So from there, we're taking the information we collected with the adaptive card, right, number of activities and destination, and we're passing that as a prompt into the LLM. And in that prompt, we said that there's two inputs. There's the number of activities, and then there's the destination. So there's not a whole lot of properties to this, but what this does is allow us to, there we go, kind of tag the prompt with those output parameters from the previous step into this step. And I think that is represented best. You can see the two parameters here. So the number of activities and the description is the destination of where we want to go. But we're telling the AI, please give me like 3 options of activities in, say, Grand Rapids for people who are there for the first time. Please return a numbered list with emojis in the name of the activity to give it a brief description. And then we can actually test that prompt. And you can see it gave us 5 results as a test that have a random emoji, and it looked at a combination of the knowledges that we have connected to the Copilot, mainly probably from Hello West Michigan. So it said we should go check out Art Prize. We can rent a bike to go look at the trails along the Grand River. We can do a taste at Grand Rapids. We can shop at the downtown market, and we can catch a show at the DeVos Performance Hall. That's pretty cool, right? Just standard ChatGPT may not have come up with that on its own. We can see that we have some inputs. It does ask us when we define an input to give it some sample data, right? So I've just said number is number and description is Grand Rapids or destination, whatever. And if we want to, we could continue to do more to this prompt, and we can continue to add more variables. It knows that there's 2 that are available to us based off the previous flow. So you can get very complex with this if you want. I don't actually want to change anything. And then as an output, this part actually threw me a little bit when I was doing this earlier. The output is a record. So it gives me an automatic output of it just made up the name prediction output automatically. It's of type record. And then we could take that output record and we can map it into the message that it returns to the user. Now, what threw me is that record is a complex type. It's not like everything else is just string or number or date. So as you browse through the selective variable options, I saw, like, I just called it var2 or whatever, but var2.text is the actual text that we want to show the user, and then pass that back to the message. So to show this, we're going to say, hey, can you build me a travel plan today? And what should come up first is that adaptive card, which it does. It says, where are you going? We'll go Grand Rapids. And I would like 4 activities. And now, really kind of basic emojis there, but we have the way we asked it to give us a numbered list with emojis of the title of information, right? So it answered based off the way we wanted to, based off of this topic or this intent. Now, what I was doing before, to show you like how I screwed up even more times today and previously, is the fact that when you first add this and you go click the add a variable, I went quickly and I was like, oh, record, cool, and it didn't give me any errors. Because the other thing is if you really just like type in almost anything here, it kind of lets you, at least if you don't click the right, if you click right, well, maybe it's in this one, click right here, you can like just type things, right? So you got to be a little careful, but it will validate if things are wrong, and it will also validate if you don't have the number of required items. But if I just do record and I refresh the test over here, it'll know that I made some changes. Travel plan, just going right directly to it. We're doing Grand Rapids, and we're going to do 6 activities this time. This is what I was getting. I was getting the entire record of JSON around the tokens, how many, which could be helpful if you're like debugging a problem, right? If something's going wrong. So it's pretty powerful, the fact that you can kind of just switch out what thing you want to put in the message to get back to the user. But you don't want to use record, is the bottom line there. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this. We're going to go, nope, did it again. See how easy it is to kind of, you actually want text. And then I've already saved it, so I'm not actually going to save it. But now that I've made the changes, it'll go back to working. So we'll do it one last time here, travel plan. And I'm actually going to say Columbus, Ohio. And we're going to see what it says. Ah, it's funny. So you can actually see that the flow of the topic or the intent of our custom agent doesn't always have to respect the system message of the main Copilot. Now, what you could do is you could add more context into, probably an if-else statement here, or some sort of validation to, condition, there it is. So add a condition, and you could say if so what would it be, destination or description? If the destination is equal to, or how about contains? Come on. I guess we'll just go with equals to. Columbus, Ohio. You could say, I would like to just say, sorry, too bad. And then all other conditions are going to go to asking the LLM to actually give us an answer. So.
But is the one that you just put in still going to fall down here too? Because it looks like it's.
Did I do it wrong?
It looks like it's after the switch. Not part of it.
Yeah, I did that wrong. Fantastic. So let's try to move it. I haven't tried this before. Say no. Boy, it sure looks like you can drag it, but apparently you can't, which is fantastic. Yes. Yep. Fantastic. You know what? Hey, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Columbus, Ohio. Sorry, too bad. Fantastic for all of us that don't love Columbus, Ohio. So again, one of the super powerful things about this is the fact that you can add as many of these topics as you want. They have the triggers that you can catch certain phrases that you want to trigger it. You can collect information. You can define variables, output parameters, input parameters. You can have flow. All of this, frankly, was a lot harder to accomplish in the semantic kernel version of building an agent in the Copilot. Now, it has some other benefits, but that's a whole nother talk. So that is the next step of that. You guys think it's useful? It's kind of interesting. Does anyone else do anything super cool with this that anybody want to share anything that they've done? Okay, everyone's just ready to get to the election results. So the best way to try it out is actually go right to copilotstudio.microsoft.com, or just search for Copilot Studio. As long as you have a Microsoft 365 account, you can do this. All right. In fact, there's some links on how to do that. So, or aka.ms, try Copilot Studio. There are a lot of the adaptive cards and some of the prompts. There are libraries out there that you can use. You have to kind of come up with your own from scratch. I haven't even checked out the Copilot Studio snippets yet. All of this stuff is fairly new and not usually my world that I play in. So I just really want to kind of overview the aspect of things. But honestly, with that, guys, that's the main stuff I had to show. We can tool around here a little bit more if people are interested to look at more of it. Any major questions? Yeah.
What happens if you talk about Ohio just in the regular conversation?
Oh, sure. So, what is worth visiting in Ohio?
So there's one right answer.
Boy, usually.
So the end condition must have completely cut you
Oh,
off.
it was just taking a real long time. I wonder, did I not save? Oh, you know what? Sorry. We switched. I switched on you because I had the wrong place. We'll try it again really quick. What is worth visiting in Ohio? I'm unable to provide anything about information and attractions in Ohio. I love it. Yes. Yep, that's what we wanted, because we put in basically the system prompt or in the instructions right here, ignore anything internationally and Ohio. So yeah, that's how you would control it. I guess another thing that I think is somewhat interesting is that it should give us some stats about what's being used, which is always important as you're working on any AI solution. I think that having a way to track metrics, logs, analytics about, are people using it, are they getting the answers they want? That's something that you should always kind of bake into any of the AI tools that you're going to provide for anyone. And this does a nice job of kind of just, as you saw, it was Power BI just loaded up really quickly, tied into it. And if we were using this in the more real world, we'd actually have some stats that show up here. But you can see it's going to have total number of sessions, engagement over time, abandon rate, is it working or not? Super important. So I know I'm not touching every single feature here because frankly, we don't have time and I don't know enough about it yet to be all that much of an expert. But when you do talk about publishing it, it does look like you have quite a few options for where to publish this, right? So one thing that might be super interesting is publishing it, which I thought I actually did before, so I'm surprised it's not showing up. Oh, this is the new demo. Yeah, okay, so here's a couple points. I did not authenticate to a lot of other channels, so it's telling me that, hey, because you chose Teams authentication, only Teams channels are available. To probably put it in Slack, I would most likely need to go off against those other channels. Web channel. Oh, I think it's actually so authenticate manually, and then you would kind of. Oh no, that's not what I was thinking.
You talk about internal company authentications. Does this tie to Active Directory at all?
Yes, there's a whole lot of basically right here. Authenticate with Microsoft is the default.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So and that's kind of where my tenant came from, the fact that my account is at BizStream. So that's where all that stuff started. Now, one other quick thing that I thought was actually really cool too. This isn't just text. So, like I said before in the intro, cognitive services are a part of this. So, say we wanted to take our, okay, it's not the exact one, but say we wanted to not just have this message come out in text. Say we wanted to have it do text to speech. You could have this thing talk to you, right?
What about a reverse image lookup? Like I want to go here, and you don't know where it is. Where it is? Somebody gave you a picture. Catholic Church downtown Iraq.
Right. That is possible. That's part of the studio ability. I just don't know where to go to show you exactly how to do that.
Okay.
But it's just I know that's because I've seen that demo from Microsoft.
You have to remember a lot of this is powered by OpenAI under the hood, so like
Right.
if ChatGPT can do it,
Gotcha.
well, I think I saw that's GPT 3.5,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be like GPT 4.0 with vision. Is that gonna work? Like instant vision.
You're gonna have everybody throwing a towel over their webcam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if we could switch the model behind the scenes, but I don't see that yet. But yeah, I would say to me it's impressive how far they've come along. It's totally worth checking out. It's not a lot of barrier to entry. Go check it out.
This is great. It's great to play with.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Any other questions? All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.